Our next guest is a force in the world of personal transformation. Cathy is a former teacher, a certified NLP trainer, master life coach, and founder of Vision and Vigor, a coaching practice that helps people break through mental blocks, rewire their thinking, and step into who they were truly meant to be. With a background in teaching, leadership, and behavioural change, she's dedicated her life to helping others lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose. We'll learn about unlocking your potential from the inside out and why the mind is the most powerful tool you'll ever own. Cathy, Halat, welcome to the Founder Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take us back to that first moment that you were called to coaching, and was there a catalyst that actually led you to starting up your own business?
Yes, there was a catalyst. I had a health issue, so I was working in corporate, and then I had an issue that meant that I needed to step away from work for a while. And during that time, and after I had an operation, I reflected a lot on my career and what I was doing at that time, and I just felt the urge to do something a bit more meaningful and purposeful with my life. And I think that that's what happens when you go through certain moments in your life where you stop and really think about, you know, the path that you're on and whether it's fulfilling for you.
And do you think your background that you've had in teaching and leadership, how's that sort of helped and shaped the way that you are today?
Oh, hugely. As a teacher, and also in my following career in human resources and leadership, people have been at the core of what I do. So working with children, working with parents, with other teaching staff, school leaders, and then within the corporate environment and leading teams, it's all about people and connection. And leading teams is something that I loved when I was doing that throughout my career. And so now I work with people to help them get better outcomes for their lives, and there's nothing more inspiring and satisfying than that.
So there's anyone listening to this podcast and they heard your intro and it was quite an intro, and obviously you're a very inspirational person, but help us out. What does NLP mean for those people who may not know? What does it mean, and how do you believe it can genuinely help someone's life?
So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and I have found through my learnings and the time I've spent in coaching that it has to be one of the most powerful and transformational tools that is available to people. Just don't know much about it. People don't know enough about it. So neuro-linguistic programming is about your mind, the language that you use to describe your experiences through your perceptions, and then your actions and behaviours that create the outcomes that you experience in your life. And if you pull any one of those levers, then you can experience change in more resourceful ways. And so I think it's something that I wish people knew and understood more.
Yep. What's the biggest shift that you've seen in clients that start, I guess, delving into that subconscious mind versus the surface level?
It's really about finding who they really are, because there's often, because of experiences that have happened throughout their lives, their true self has been sort of layered over with misperceptions about themselves. So limiting beliefs and so forth seem to crowd in and create noise that really derails people in their life's purpose or what they dream for their lives or what they'd like to do. And I find that with clients when they experience life coaching and some of the amazing NLP tools and techniques that we have, that they unpack a lot of those beliefs that they've been holding about themselves and fears that have been holding them back from actually fulfilling their true potential.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because it's that story that we keep telling ourselves, isn't it? And it's up to you to decide whether it's true or not.
100%.
Well said. What's I'm trying to think how to ask this. What surprised you most as a founder and like your journey as a coach? What's been that thing that, the whole methodology behind this podcast is think different, be different, act different. What's been something that's really taken you by surprise, either as a founder or as a coach?
That you don't have to have it all figured out. Because I've found I used to be a bit of a perfectionist and want to have everything just perfect before I would launch into something. But this has really taught me that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to start and evolve and keep moving forward and learning and reflecting and sometimes we just have to sit in a moment and let it find us rather than trying to push too hard.
I think I just grab what you said there about just taking that first step, because isn't that so important with people that you've got these dreams, you've got these visions, and yet the first thing you need to do is not have it all figured out, but just to take that first step. Be led with your heart, be led with your spirit, and then that first step will turn into a second step and turn into a third step. You've obviously worked with a wide range of different people. Can you just describe for us some of the type of range that you've worked with clients?
So often there'll be people that have lost their way. They are stuck in their lives. They may want to shift gears in their career, for example, but they have they're held back by limiting beliefs, or they think that they're not good enough, or they won't be successful in what they want to do. And so it's about unpacking what is actually holding them back, and then being able to work with them to clear those beliefs that are limiting them, and then for them to be able to find their way through that and be able to, launch themselves into whatever it is that they want to do without being hindered by all those obstacles that stop us in our paths.
Yeah. Have you found any patterns, or is there any particular common blocks that most people struggle with?
The limiting beliefs.
Limiting beliefs.
There are 3 very common limiting beliefs. Yep. Not being good enough, not belonging, and being unlovable. And often they will be at the core. If you unpack all the layers, they'll be one of those 3 or more will be at the core of what holds people back. And fears. We have fears as well, but often they all come together into 1 or 2 or 3 of those beliefs. Yeah.
Fear is a big one, isn't it? Like when you just look, and I remember I had a question asked to me by somebody once, and they said, "What would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail?" Yeah. And it's an interesting question where you think, "Oh, I would have a crack at that, or I'd do this, or I'd start a business if you knew there was no way I was going to fail." And that's a fear, right? That your fear of failing is the fear of why you don't even start.
Yes, exactly right.
So when you're sort of working with, clients, patients, whoever it may be, and sort of they're in a dark place or they're struggling with something, how do you keep yourself in alignment when they're facing a challenge?
Sometimes it's not easy, because when you're a sensitive, empathetic person, there's that temptation to kind of get lost in people's stories, but that's not serving the client in the best way possible. And I think that's at the core of what we do. You have to remember that you're there to serve that person and to support them and guide them. So it's, I suppose keeping those boundaries and understanding that in order to serve that person in the best and optimal way for them, then you need to be able to, just keep grounded and not get lost in their story.
Yeah. I think I remember a couple of words used recently, and that was, like you said, empathetic. And I think if you have too much empathy, that's when you get caught up. So then you need to introduce the sympathy, which is obviously when you got people in the medical profession. If you're too empathetic, well, then you just get too caught up in that person's problem that you got to have a degree of sympathy more so. Is what we found with one of our guests, Benny. Is there a particular tool or approach that you've used that you think that every leader or every entrepreneur, they should be adopting?
Reframing is a really powerful NLP technique. So it's all about...
explain that one for us.
So it's all about our language. So definitely working with other people. Look, it can be in families as well, or in the workplace, or in any relationship. Reframing is a big one. Obviously, Ben gets this one.
Benny might need to give us an example.
I think that, look, I think one thing about reframing that's extremely important is you can actually shift the contextual environment that you're in by how you frame something. So Magnus and I were having a conversation off camera earlier today about leadership, and I have a real problem with fixed leadership models because psychology is not linear, it's non-linear. So I actually look at those models as fake because anyone can read a book and say, follow this line to success. It's not really how it works. So let's say, for example, you have 25 patients, children, adults in a program, right? You may have a frame where they all need to exist, but inside of that, they all need individualized instruction. And so what you actually need is a high-quality practitioner, and I was giving Magnus a big, compliment off camera because he's doing a lot of leadership work at the moment in his own life, and Magnus is a high performer, and I say, like, if you're leading from that central core, right, you have the ability to reframe everything these people that don't believe in yourself. So I think from your perspective, like, just to jump on the back of the question and where we're going with that, what's the major power of reframing? I was having a little chuckle to myself because my opinion is that reframing can change everything about a conversation. What's your thoughts?
Well, reframing is about perceptions. So when we hear words or when we use words, they'll be based on our view of the world or our reality that we create from our experiences. So reframing is an important way of using language to have people think outside the box of their own thinking and perceptions that they've created from their experience, which would be different. The three of us would have completely different perspectives of the same event, for example. So reframing, and there's a whole range of different language techniques within NLP and questioning techniques that help people to use words in different ways to unpack perspectives, to open people's minds to other views other than their own. So in a leadership perspective, how amazing would that be in a team environment where you have all these different personalities and every one of them will have their own strengths, skills and talents, but each person also will have certain views and perspectives about what the other one is saying. And so by opening up the conversation with really smart, thoughtful NLP type questions, it enables people to think differently, to broaden their thinking, and how many more options and possibilities does that create in any environment?
I think perspective is amazing, and you brought up that if we all saw the same event, we'd have a different perspective. That's one of the reasons that when there's been a crime committed, for example, you've got all these eyewitnesses, and the police will interview each and every one of those, and they could all stand up and put their hand on the Bible in court, and they've all guaranteed that they've seen this. But when you're looking at it from that angle, that's all you're able to see. And that person was looking at it from that angle, and it just tells a completely different story.
Yes.
So I find that absolutely fascinating. And the other part I'd add to that is that depending on your level of experience in life, so I remember one guy, if all you've done is gone and visited a particular area, and you might absolutely love that and you talk that area up, but your perspective is only that you've only ever seen that area. So unless you've gone and seen this area and this area and this area, then you've actually got a fairly narrow perspective on that. So quite fascinating. What's it mean to you to build a business with purpose, like having it coming from here versus just building a business for the sake of making money?
It means everything because it's true to who you are. And for me, authenticity and integrity and honesty and all of those things and those values are really important to me. And so I've never considered building a business before now, because I'm at that point where I want to do something that I know is purposeful for me, helps me to create value for others, and that's really fulfilling from my perspective. So there's a lot more heart in it, I think, when you build a business of your own that's filled with passion to get or to inspire change for other people.
So I guess that you can then really relate that back to, so when you're working with clients, that if they've built their business with that same level of passion, then they're able to get through some of those tougher times.
Well, it all depends on what the person's bringing to the table and their level of openness as well. So, but definitely I think if people bring heart and passion to their desire for change, then anything's possible.
Well said.
Yeah, in terms of empathy and maintaining boundaries with your clients, how do you find that, juggling act? Showing empathy but also maintaining your boundaries. How do you?
Well, I think I touched on it before when I was saying that, remembering that you are there to serve that person. Yeah. And so it's coming back to that, I think, at the core is just remembering that, okay, let's just take a moment, take a breather, and remember that I'm here to help that person, to serve that person, to change their life and get better outcomes for them. So let's just focus on that person rather than how it's affecting me, perhaps. And I can take my time later to maybe reflect on that, if need be.
So,
if you could leave one legacy message to the next generation of coaches and change makers, what would that be?
I think it would be that. It would be lead with heart.
Lead with heart.
Yes. And what's core to coaching is just listening and being curious instead of needing to talk and to ask questions and to be the one leading that conversation. It's all about listening and really focusing on the person and letting that drive the conversation.
So in terms of this podcast today, obviously we've talked a lot about, different theory and different, practical outcomes. Do you have any breakthrough moments with a client that you could share with us just for the people listening today?
Yep. I had one client who had great dreams for her career, but she was so caught up in the limiting beliefs about herself that she wasn't good enough and, she was never going to be taken seriously, that it really held her back in her career. But after working with me for a while, she was able to clear those limiting beliefs because she understood where they'd come from, and then after that was able to then, unhindered go off and chase the dreams that she had in her career, which is wonderful. That's why you do the work. We do the work that we do.
Yeah, that's the one that keeps you coming back, isn't it? Before we rip into the quickfire questions, is there anything that we haven't discussed that we should have discussed?
I think just for anyone who's looking out there, to become a coach or anything like that, what would be one piece of advice you might give them? Just, for someone out there's on, maybe I want to do coaching, maybe I want to learn more, maybe I want to be innovative. What would be something you might say to, or if someone had told you something at the start of your journey, what would you have liked to hear then?
Yeah, follow your heart, follow your dream, follow what inspires you, because it's tough. Starting a business is tough, and there's a lot of moments where you do question yourself and doubt yourself. But if you're there for the right reasons and you're passionate about it, then that's what keeps you standing back up and keep going and pivot and, change. If things aren't working, then try a different path and keep going.
Well said.
Quick fire question time.
Okay,
Cathy.
I'm ready.
Here we
I'm
go.
ready. Let's go.
Are you early mornings or late nights?
Neither, but if I have to pick, I'd say early morning.
The favourite mindset book that changed the way you show up?
That would be Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Awesome book. One word you'd use to describe NLP?
Undervalued.
What's your personal anchor when things feel off?
Generally, that would be quiet time by myself, that where I need to just reset and reflect.
Coffee order.
Oh, grande flat white, lactose free.
A habit you swear by.
Exercise.
What's the most powerful question a coach can ask?
What else could that mean?
Your biggest fear when you first launch your coaching business?
Not being successful.
A quote you live by?
Well, that would have to be James Clear's quote, which is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Well said. What inspires you right now?
What inspires me right now is making positive change in the world and having impact.
What's the most misunderstood thing about life coaching?
Going back to what you said before, Ben, that, you know, you follow the bouncing ball for every person, and cookie cutter approach is not what coaching is. It's very much a client-centred process.
All right, last question. Finish this sentence. Leadership
is about providing a nurturing, supportive environment for your team so that they can shine and thrive.
Well said. Thank you, Mitch, so much for your insights, Cathy. Been
Thank
a
you.
great conversation and
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Lovely to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks,
Thank
Betty.
you. Thanks, guys.